Alright, YouTube, we got to talk about Keith Ellison, sort of Bernie Sanders' hand-picked choice for the DNC. He's in a little bit of hot water right now over some comments he made about the Israelis some years ago. The ADL is classing him as disqualified for the running for the actual position of head of the DNC. Of course, the others running for that position essentially boil down to Howard the Coward Dean and some no-names with no chance. So you're probably going to get Howard Dean as the head of the DNC. He's already been the head of the DNC before. Oddly enough, I'll say this in Dean's defense. He's crazy, he's cracked, but he did a better job than certainly that, what the fuck was it, Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Donna Brazil as interim or any of these others, or that Fiora or I don't know, someone who held the position there for like 24 hours between the two of them. It was really funny, and then WikiLeaks slammed her too. Keith Ellison, of course, is the first Muslim in the U.S. Congress, so I think perhaps it's no surprise that he holds views that would be generally unacceptable within political discourse, namely actually criticizing the state of Israel. It's a no-go most of the time. There's a Voltaire quote that comes to mind: to find out who rules over you, first find out who you cannot criticize. I will say this, though. Both sides kind of have a point here. The left in the United States, as in Europe, wines and dines Islam and pretends that it's some great victory for our country that a Muslim happens to be in office. If this were a Christian individual with similar views, with similar levels of zeal and religiosity, they would cast them as a xenophobe. They would. Quite clearly, they've done this throughout time. It's actually very funny. For instance, some Christian, some relatively zealous Christian individual in Congress says, oh, well, Israel great, and, fuck its neighbors, fuck the Iranians or something like that. Nobody really has a problem with that, other than certainly people on the left. On the other side, somebody as Islamic gets into Congress, says, well, the Israelis have done wrong, and Zionism must be crushed, or something like that. All of a sudden, you get holy hell from the ADL or something like that, on maybe more the Christian and Jewish side, but at the same time, the left has no problem with it. It's actually very funny. They're just picking and choosing which groups they want to prop up, no matter how theocratic they may be. He has a point. The Israeli state, in many of its actions, I'll make another video later on specifically my feelings about Israel. I don't have a problem with Israel as a state or Israeli nationalism. I do have a problem with imperialism. Their settlements are illegal. They haven't signed the NPT, and they have nuclear weapons. I have a problem with those things. I don't really care about the internal goings-on within the accepted borders of the state of Israel. I don't care. It's more the Samson option stuff that really, I think, is a sticking point for me. It's not the nationalistic side, it's the imperialistic side, whereby they say, oh, this land is our land, and your land's our land too. Golan Heights, some of these settlements in the West Bank, creating a no-go zone on the border of Gaza for apparently no reason, because some kids fired off a couple fireworks at Israel, which is what Hamas rockets really boil down to most of the time. It's very funny. But at the same time, for Ellison and for his backers, people like Sanders say, oh, well, but Islam, good, Israel, tyrant state, evil, but all these Islamic tin horn states around them, oh, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them. Now, I'd say there's some significant problems on both sides. I do find it funny, though. You have, like, the Council on Islamic American Relations, or whatever, CARE, or whatever they term themselves. Anytime somebody in U.S. politics dares to declare that somebody who did something wrong was actually a Muslim, and not, like, they try to disavow the Islam of anybody who does anything that we find to be wrong. They say, oh, well, you're evil, bigot, and Islamophobic, horrible person. On the other side, the ADL and all these other groups do the same thing if you criticize the state of Israel. So while he has a point, I'm not surprised he's getting lambasted for it. It probably will keep him from being the head of the DNC. I'm not on board with religious nuts being the head of political parties either. Like, for instance, I don't particularly like Mike Pence. I have no problem with Trump. He's not religious anyway. He can pretend to be, but he's not. Mike Pence is. He's more of a zealot. I don't like Mike Pence for that reason. I think his views are screwy a little bit, honestly. Another reason I'd say long life to Trump, because I wouldn't want to see it President Pence, honestly. I think he probably did that for a reason. On the other side, though, you have religious Jewish individuals or Islamic individuals in various political parties. They act the same. It's the same thing. It's religious zeal. It's this weird mentality that they have behind their organized religion. I've pointed out, I don't have a problem with spirituality. If someone's in office, they have spiritual beliefs. You know, they believe generally in an afterlife or reincarnation or something. They believe in a higher power. That's fine. You know, just don't shove that religion down somebody's throat like a cock and nobody cares. But when they applaud these organized religious groups, it invariably tarnishes their ability to conduct foreign policy. And that's what I would say would be the risk with Ellison. It would be the risk with any particularly religious individual in any other endeavor. Now, a person can be religious and still do a good job. That is true. But they have to put that religiosity on the back burner when push comes to shove. They have to look out for what is pragmatic, what actually solves a problem, not what is idealistic, what is condoned by my scripture or something like that. Otherwise, we'd have unholy chaos, honestly, in the United States. I find it very funny that Ellison is lambasted and called disqualified for criticizing Zionism or criticizing the state of Israel. If he had said U.S. foreign policy is too pro-Saudi, we need to tamp down on that. U.S. foreign policy favors the Turks too much. You know, you've got like an autocrat ruling their country, and we should reconsider their status in NATO if they don't calm down or something. Do you think that these same groups would have a problem with that? No, they wouldn't care. He might, the Council on Islamic American Relations or whatever might call him out on it, but the ADL ultimately at the end of the day has a hell of a lot more power. It is funny, I will say this in closing. It is funny that our foreign policy in the region hinges so much on one relatively small state. It is very funny to me. I have my own opinions about why this is. It doesn't have anything to do with, the protocols of Zion or something. It has to do with something that's actually a little bit more conspiratorial that I think happened many years ago. I should probably explain that in a video. I've explained it before on other forums. Probably put it on Facebook first to see what people think of my general theory. But yeah, it is odd that the state of Israel has so much power. I don't care about their nationalism. If they want to build walls, if they want to pass some moral legislation in their country and people approve it, okay, every other state does the same thing. I think it can be unfortunate at times when you have a bunch of moral laws and things like that, but it is their country. If they want to do with it what they will. But when they extend beyond their borders, they start settling land that's not theirs. They start harassing their neighbors. They randomly bomb their neighbors, like they did to Syria back, I think, in 2006. They bombed some so-called nuclear reactor that could have been basically anything under the sun. Yeah, that's when problems arise. Now, when Islamic states do that, I'm going to call them out on it too. When the Jewish state of Israel does it, why not call them out too? It's very funny that he gets so much shit for this. He wouldn't get nearly as much shit if he called out the Saudis. That's in vogue right now, actually, among the American left, being anti-Saudi. Like explicitly anti-Saudi. Not just, they're a theocracy, that's a problem. They're kind of warmongering around in Yemen, and they've got nukes on short order from Pakistan, and we feel uncomfortable with this. But outright, blatant criticism of their very existence as a state at this point is almost in vogue among some of the social justice warrior demographics from my generation. But aim that criticism at Israel, and all of a sudden people say, horrible bigot Nazi, you want to Holocaust people or something like that, which isn't the case. You're just pointing out imperialism in the Israeli sense appears to be destabilizing large swaths of the region, and the U.S. has fallen for the line of doing basically what the Israelis want too many times. Netanyahu came out, let us not forget, before the Iraq War, to say, oh yeah, this is a great idea, you'll be seen as liberators, the world will be so much better off once Saddam is out of power. Is it? Is it really? You have to assume they've got enough of an intelligence apparatus that they knew that the ramifications of what we were about to do in Iraq was not going to be helpful to the regional stability involved. Therefore, there must have been some ulterior reason that Netanyahu and his ilk wanted us to go into Iraq. It's that simple. It's self-explanatory. What do you suppose that reason was? Oh, certainly helps these terrorist groups destabilize all the other states that Israel has ever had a problem with. I think that's probably the reason why. So yeah, poor Keith Ellison, first Muslim in Congress, and he won't be able to be, first Muslim head of a major political movement or anything like that because the ADL is going to come down on him like a ton of bricks. It's funny. He's a far left, Islamic zealot, so I don't really care if if he ends up out of a political job, but it's pretty funny to see who's actually causing that to happen. I don't care about Keith Ellison. I don't care about having any Muslims in Congress. Who cares? Again, you've got a tiny minority of the population. They get their Muslim congressman. There are quite a few Jews in this country as well. They've got disproportionately a lot more political power. And all those people are going to be attacking Ellison for his comments when he was a member of the Nation of Islam, of all things. Yeah, always outnumbered, always outgunned, always support the United Negro College Fund or something like that. Some black power movement that is fairly explicitly racist, does not particularly like white people or white culture. The fact that he was a member of such a movement is a little bit strange as well. It'd be almost like, somebody was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Oh, but they left it 10 years ago. Don't worry about it too much. Yeah, I'm sure that would fly in the public consciousness. Then again, there are also people that are like Israeli dual citizens who are in Congress. I don't think that should even be allowed, by the way. People should have sole citizenship in the United States if they're going to be in any political position here. They shouldn't have any split loyalty whatsoever. So it's funny to watch. I wonder how this will actually play out. That's about all. Peace out.